Reptile Rescue Family, how's it going? It seems like every so often I have to make this video. Why are my snakes brown? Why is that snake brown? Why is another snake brown? It just gets asked, guys, and I know a lot of you reptile enthusiasts, you know the answer already, but we're going to get into it. It's because my snake is shedding. So typically my bright, light orange boa is not this color, but she is definitely dark brown. Her light reds look brown, her orange looks brown, her creamsicle colors are not there because she's gone into shed. So what's going on? Yes, and I know every so often I have to make this kind of video and just answering questions, and don't worry, for me it doesn't get old, although sometimes I worry hopefully for you guys it doesn't get old. But same thing, Tetra here, very brown, but also look at her eyes. Her eyes are blue. So what's going on? Why is this snake dark? Why are her eyes blue? What's going on? Good questions. And I don't want to say the question is bad. Some people will say in the comments, guys, oh, it's a bad question, or this question's been asked before. Well, of course it has, but we have new viewers, and, you know, I've got hundreds of videos, and so perhaps they haven't seen a video talking about this, and they don't know, and this is their first time. I don't show this thing in a while. It's been winter, so they've seen a snake be one color, and then they see it in another video, and now it's dark, it's pale, what's going on? So the first answer, if you haven't figured it out, the snakes are shedding. That's right. We're about to get a whole bunch of this. There's Ahsoka's last shed. Nice one giant piece. What's going on while that's happening? Why does the snake look brown? Well, actually, if we get really close here, you can see that there's good distance between the actual scales. Do you see that? And that's typically a good sign that your snake is getting ready to shed as well. So reptile skin, but especially snake skin, can only stretch so much. That distance in between, do you see how those scales are really pulled really far apart like that when they should be much closer together? That's that top layer of skin. So what will happen is the snake has outgrown its current skin. Think of it like your shirt. It doesn't fit anymore. You need to buy a new shirt. Well, they need to buy a new skin, but they don't buy it, they grow it. So underneath the old skin, a layer of new, larger skin is growing. Now they have to get rid of that top layer, so they have to shed it. Snakes shed a little bit differently than some reptiles, right? They shed their whole body, including their eyes, right? Their eye cap, that top layer. Think of it like in NASCAR. The windshield, when it gets dirty, they peel a layer of film off of that, and then you've got your new clean layer. That's what they're doing. So this old layer has to separate. How does it separate? Well, that's good. One is there's a natural process, okay? Hi, honey. So there's a natural process that takes place here. Once that skin is dead, the body starts to stretch and separate that skin, all right? But also it needs to be lubricated. You need to get liquid in there. So you see that blue in their eyes? That's a natural liquid that the body, the new skin, leaks, secretes out of there. And what that does is it, one, lubricates the new skin. That way the old skin should be able to peel off of it nice. It's nice lubrication. And two, though, the skins are on top of each other like this. That lubrication flows through, and this is tight. The new skin is very tight with the old skin. That lubrication goes through and poof, it pops it a little bit. So now you've popped it, and then that lubrication is in there making the inside a little bit more slippery. Now, that lubrication is going to go away. So in the beginning of the shed, they'll get nice and dark. Hi. Oh, you hear us, but you can't see us. So the beginning of the shed, they get nice and dark because you've now got Here's one of her old skins. This on top of the new skin. Okay. Then you flood that with this blue. Sometimes people will say they're cloudy. Sometimes they'll say the snake is in blue. That's what it means. You can really only see the blueness from the eyes because of how clear the eye cap itself is. Now that lubrication, though, is going to go away. That's going to be reabsorbed by the new layer of skin. It's not going to stick around. That's why when they shed, you don't see all this water everywhere. So it's just there to help separate and help lubricate. Separate. What's wrong with me? Now, what can happen sometimes, though, is then the old skin and the new skin may suction cup back together because the snake dries out. Because when they're blue, they don't shed while they're blue. They eventually clear up. Then a couple days after the blue phase is over, then the snake will shed. And the snake sheds actually by stretching its mouth open as much as possible to split the skin on its mouth and on its face. And then it will slither forward, but in small sections, basically pulling itself out of the shed, which is really good. If we look at Ahsoka, she was dark blue yesterday, but today she's clear in her eyes, but she's still dark brown, and you still see those, basically that gap that you're seeing there is the old skin getting ready to come off. So we as keepers need to help, especially if you're in an area where you're winter, especially if you're in an area that's dry, and especially if you have a furnace that is natural gas, because that natural gas is going to be dry heat. Now you can help offset this with a whole home humidifier right on your furnace. You can have room humidifiers. Some people have put humidifiers or foggers in tanks, but I just mist and water it down. So I just have a pump, with a wand that you would use to spray fertilizer or, anything like that, but it's just clean and it just has warm water in it. And so I just come and I spray, and when you're doing this, it's very important. Now, I don't do this until blue phase has been entered for a couple days, because you're doing it in advance, and the shedding could be weeks. You don't know how long it's going to be. Especially with larger snakes sometimes, the blue phase can last longer. So when you're doing this, we definitely want to soak the substrate, and we want to get the snake itself wet, because we want it to be humid, typically more than normal. You can bring the humidity up from your 30%, 35% up to 70, 80, 90%. And it's only going to be like this for the duration of the shed. It's not going to give them an RI or anything like that. I just say watch out. Use room temperature water. Use lukewarm water. Don't go in there with ice cold water. So what are we doing? By soaking this substrate, the substrate will also eventually evaporate out, causing humidity to rise. And by getting the snake wet, we're just helping with that humidity. Now, we don't have to do this to Tetra because she's floating in her water bowl. Ahsoka has a big litter box right there full of water that she could lay in. But I find that my boas don't soak in water when they're going to shed, but my ball pythons do. I don't know if one species is considered smarter than the other. I have no idea. If you have an above the tank heat source coming in, the more you wet, or at that point you could move their water bowl under it. She's heated by the belly down here. That would also heat the water bowl from above, causing the water to evaporate, increasing humidity. In this case, we'll really soak down where the heat panel or the under tank heater is, and that will again heat it, evaporate humidity. Very important. Soak her down, close it, and be done. Now what I do for a ball python when they're getting ready to go through shed, like this, she's in blue. When she comes out of blue, I will lightly get this down because she is not going to shed in here. She's going to shed over here. But what I do when she's in here, hey honey, and you gotta be careful sometimes, guys. This is when you could get struck. because they can't see you. They don't know what's going on. Even though they hear you and they smell you, they don't know what's going on. They're blind, or mostly blind. But what I will do, because they typically move around in their water bowl, they displace some of the water. Normally this is up to here. So if you look, her upper body and over here is not underwater. I'm just going to fill up some water in a little watering pail, warm water, and top this off. Simple. Hopefully that answered the question for you guys. If not, I don't know what else I can say. Take care, everybody. Thank you guys for supporting my reptile rescue family.